Hello everyone, and welcome to my shiny new channel, CannaCare GB. I've set up this channel primarily as an educational and discussive platform to try and dispel some of the myths and bad press surrounding cannabis in the UK. It really is a fantastic medicinal substance. I'll also be discussing, if I'm allowed to, the different strains that I come across, methods of consumption, and hopefully interviewing fellow users about their reasons for medicating and their experiences, and who knows, maybe the occasional dip into philosophy. Meh. In this inaugural video, I'm going to discuss my personal reasons for using weed, how I came to use it, and why I think improving public opinion on cannabis is vital in the UK. Right now, we are starting to see a shift towards a more accepting attitude about cannabis and its potential uses as medicine, which is why I think this is an important video. So my story. To start that, we'd have to go back to primary school, and no, I didn't start using cannabis in primary school, but that's when I first realised that I was probably a bit different. I got held back a year. It's not the worst thing to happen to a child, admittedly, but it was a clear sign that perhaps things weren't quite right for me. To my memory, there was never much discussion between my parents and me about being held back a year, and I have no idea what my teachers actually told my parents, but I think there was just a kind of general impression that I was a bit slow. This was something I believed myself for years to come, and it wasn't until I was in my mid-20s that I realised I definitely wasn't stupid. So what was it, and why is this relevant to my cannabis use? Well, as an adult, I've come to the conclusion that I very likely had an undiagnosed developmental disorder, such as ADHD, or even being on the spectrum. When I was in my mid-teens, I first tried cannabis. I remember one of my friends asking me how I felt about an hour into it, and I replied, "Everything has slowed down." To which he just giggled and replied, "You're wasted." I mean, fair enough. It's a pretty stoned response. But there was more to what I said than I think he'd realised. My brain is an incredibly hectic and noisy place to live. I have multiple hazy thoughts occurring at any one time. This can be both confusing and frustrating, and is probably the main reason why school was so difficult for me. After that first bong hit had levelled off though, it felt like a fog had been lifted. Thoughts that normally whizzed past my brain in a vague fury seemed to suddenly slow down to the point where I could process them. I could pick my way through the fog. Thoughts became more coherent, and to be honest, it felt amazing. That was over 20 years ago, and cannabis still does the same thing for me today. It's not just me, and it's not just disorders such as ADHD. There are over 1 million people in the UK who have a legitimate medical reason for needing access to cannabis. On top of my ADHD, I have anxiety, depression, irritable bowel syndrome, chronic pain in my shoulder, thanks to a shoulder impingement, tennis elbow, and carpal tunnel in both wrists. Admittedly, quite a few of those can be helped with surgery, but we're in the middle of a global pandemic right now, and surgery's not really an option. I could be taking several medications for these disorders: sertraline for depression and anxiety, opiates for pain relief, and several medications for irritable bowel syndrome. Instead though, I've managed most of these inflictions with one medicine: cannabis. I'm in no way saying that the medications I first mentioned are bad, and I have in the past used many of them myself, but for me, the most effective, and the one I keep coming back to, is cannabis. Yet for some reason, it's illegal here in the UK. The problem that this illegality causes is that most of the time I can't access the right type of cannabis for my conditions. Thanks to all of the amazing work going on in countries where legislation has recently changed, we now have a better understanding of the different effects that the different types and strains of cannabis produce. For ADHD, I need something calming, because some strains of cannabis produce a very uplifting effect, and what I would describe as a busy head high. These are likely sativa-dominant strains, which work well for some people, but not so well for others. For someone like me with anxiety and ADHD, a sativa can actually have the opposite effect to what I need. It can make my anxieties worse, it can cause me to be twitchy, get restless twitchy legs, have a nervous general energy. I find that a good midway hybrid between sativa and indica works best for me. For pain management and sleep issues in the evenings, I would rather have access to an indica heavy strain, as these are known to have better sedative and anti-inflammatory properties. At the moment though, I get whatever my dealer has in stock. There is no choice, there is no list, there is simply a take it or leave it scenario, and in the UK this is commonplace. I would love it if I could just walk into a dispensary and purchase the right medication for my conditions. I would also love the option to just grow a plant or two in my garden every summer, or if I chose to set up a small indoor grow in a cupboard or somewhere safe, so that I know that I always have access to the medication I need. Using this medication does not make me a bad person, but in the UK right now, it does make me a criminal every single day. I had an orange chocolate brownie that I made myself for breakfast this morning. Nom nom, delicious and medicated, but also a criminal act. It's important that we start to change public opinion so that we can move towards a safer way for people to access the medication that they need. So that's my story in a nutshell, and that's why I think that these videos and the discussion about cannabis use in the UK is important. I hope all of this makes some sense, and I hope for a better legislation going forwards. Thank you for watching, and please check back for new content soon, and join us on this exciting transition into a better and medicated future. And peace.